This is going to be a really special video for me to make because it's about my dad. A few weeks back I surprised him on his birthday, and you'll see in the video that it brought me a lot of joy doing something nice for him, and I thought I'd remake that feeling by making a video for him, showing how much he means to me. In this video you're going to see that surprise, and you're also going to see an interview that I'm about to take with him about his life and what has affected him to become the father that he is to me. I hope you guys find it as inspiring and as interesting as I do. I think my dad's one of the greatest people I know, and that's not just saying that because it's my dad. I've known him for a long time. He's put more than any amount of effort I put into anything, into loving this family, and I really appreciate what he does for us. So I wanted to try and give something back and show my appreciation. Do you ever think about who your role models are in life?
Not often, but I do think of who were my role models when I was younger. A role model not just to be a father, but to be a career, a person, whatever.
Who comes to mind first when you think of a role model?
Probably my dad and my grandfather. Those two. If it wasn't for my father, which is an obvious, role model for being a father is your father kind of thing. But also other role models occurred to me is Herbert Ibbotson, Simon's dad. He was a role model, but more about being a businessman than being a father. So, but those are kind of role models for me when I was younger.
I think it's 7 a.m. Woke about half an hour ago. Got my bag. My dad has no idea that I am surprising him today for his birthday weekend. What did you try and use from your childhood to change the way that you brought us up?
I remember my childhood being free to go out on the streets, play football, play cricket on the street with friends, and explore independently of your parents always being on hand. And then we grew up in, I don't know if it's a different century or different era or a different area, or both, that you never got the opportunities to do that. So, independently in the garden and in the countryside and do stuff because it wasn't as restricted down there as it was here. So to be a independent person, learn from your own mistakes, like you cut yourself on a sharp fence or start a bonfire, those type of things you can teach, but it's best to let somebody teach themselves. So it's just like trying to create that sense of safety but also freedom, if that makes sense.
Do you ever get scared that you're being too unsafe?
Yeah, there's always times when you're thinking you've gone too far, or you're not safe or whatever. But I don't remember any particular instance where I thought your life was in danger, if that makes sense. But that's what I mean. I think that's the important thing about fatherhood, is to keep you safe, but also not to put you in cotton wool and wrap you up too closely, so you don't make your own mistakes and don't, injure yourself, because you learn from that, or bang your head or whatever.
Do you remember what Granddad was like with you?
Yeah, very. As far as I'm concerned, that's sort of very hands off. Very, he would stand back and let us get on and play with our own generation as kids, certainly young kids. But I think it was just also a question of he was always there, always on hand. As Simon, I remember one of our friends, Simon or Kevin, one or two, said they voted my dad the best dad, and I was really out of the 5 or 6 dads that were parents of my friends. I remember asking one of them, I said, "Why did you do that? Why is he the best dad?" It was just because he was always around. They said he's always around, and if we need something done, like I said, like what? And they said, well, like if our chain comes off our bikes or we need our bikes fixed, your dad is always around and he'll help. Whereas the other kids' dads were always at work. But what I regret is, making sure if I wasn't there, because I used to work from 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. So it was kind of that, I'm missing out on that 6 o'clock, or that from school time, 4 o'clock to 7 o'clock, because I wasn't here. I mean, it's just that being present, I guess, my dad taught me, it's important to be present.
Right, my dad has absolutely no idea that I'm about to roll up to this pub. My mum is filming, so we'll get a different angle in a second, but I'm hoping he has no idea.
It's a long time ago, but you were younger kids, and it's different kind of thoughts as depending on how old you are. If if you're doing your homework at home, it was a different, like you were common entrance type area. That type of era was not the same as when you were younger. Younger was like to be able to come and play with or read an animal story before bedtime. Whereas common entrance was more like, could I have helped you with your maths so you could have done better at maths, and would I have been better to do your history teaching than mum, or do you know what I mean? It was more. There were different challenges, but I hope I played a reasonable part in terms of how it went.
And what about before you were going to have children? Once you knew you were going to have children, what do you think?
Oh, well, then you think of all the nice things. You think of all the taking you on holidays, splashing in the pool with you, taking you to Disneyland, Paris, or whatever. Before, you don't think of any of the hard things that as parenting to do, disciplining your children, getting them to sleep through the night because they're screaming and whatever. No, when you're before children, you always just had these, and it's actually, to be fair, a certain amount of anxiety about being a parent, and thinking, will I drop them? Will I be able to be a parent? Do I know how to handle a baby? As a man, that was always one of my problems. Before we had a few friends with babies just before you guys were born. It was like, I would think I'll pick them up and break them. They're so delicate creatures and small, but it's only when you get your own baby that you confidently start to go, you know what, they're actually quite robust, and they're not going to break just because you pick them up, and you don't really drop them very often. But I think it's more now that you're an adult. It's more about being able to let you, like we did this afternoon, talk about how you're going to do your downloading of your films without your laptop sort of stuff. Just it's having somebody to talk through your challenges, even if you just listen to somebody talking. I don't know if you have that. I certainly do. If I have a problem and I talk to somebody about it, I'm almost able to talk through the problem myself, even if they never say anything. It's almost just the process of explaining a problem and then explaining what the options are to somebody, like almost a blank wall, but it helps you make a decision about a particular problem, right?
Do you feel that your fathering duties are soon coming to an end? Or are you afraid of that happening?
No, don't fear it. I look forward to thinking that's a big achievement of mine and your mum's, is that you are independent, healthy, well-rounded, individuals that, dare I say, can contribute to society and make the world a better place and look after yourselves and your families, if you're lucky enough to have them yourself. So, I don't fear it at all. What you mean, like my job as father being over? No, because you then, it feels like a little bit like that. You start to live your life through, we start to sort of have two or three lives. We have our life, but we can also watch your life quite closely and almost enjoy a second life by seeing what you're doing and traveling and doing stuff and whatever. So it's not about fear. No, there's no fear involved.
And if it's not about fear, is it because you're sad?
Yes, I was going to say sad. It's not fear, but it's sad. The prospect of Emma moving out next year, and next Christmas we might not be a family of 5 in this house because Emma might be living somewhere else. I'm sure she'll come back, but yeah, that is sad. When I think about that, it makes me sad.
Where is it? Are you proud of who you are? As a person?
I think so. Yes. I'm relatively proud of who I am. I'm not embarrassed by who I am. Yeah, I think so. I could be a better character in some ways, but not sure what those characteristics would be. One I am aware of that I don't but I'm very aware of other people's feelings, like trying to get part. I don't that. I'm almost sixth sense of somebody trying to drive faster than you or trying to overtake, or if you cut somebody up on the road. It's just an example. I'm very aware of how my passage through life, or me, has affected other people, and I wish I wasn't so aware, because it's kind of like it sort of makes you tread on eggshells, or somebody stands on my toe on the train and I say sorry to them. That sort of empathy goes too far sometimes. However, I know that it's also quite a key skill of mine when I'm, for instance, interviewing somebody. If I'm in your chair now, interviewing somebody for work, or I'm talking to somebody about work or whatever, I can sense almost like subconsciously whether they're, agreeing with, if they say, I agree with that, but I actually kind of feel through body language or reading them as a that actually they don't agree with me or whatever's being said. So that has been a very useful business skill. Does that make sense? It's been a very useful business skill. But in the personal circumstances, like being so aware of somebody cutting you up on a road, or, you know what I mean, in personal circumstances, I almost feel like I could be a little bit more brutal and not worry about what other people are thinking. I'd want to be less sensitive to what other people are thinking, and that can affect you in, you know, restaurants and whatever else. So that feel, what I call empathy, being very empathetic with other people, human beings, is both an asset and also a burden, if that makes sense.
Right, well, it hasn't quite gone to plan. He was somewhere, now he's not, and I've got to walk inside and hope that he's not looking at me. Okay, let's go.
So I don't remember much of my granddad. I know a little bit, but obviously you remember more. Can you go through how he passed away and how it made you feel?
So Grandad died when he was 77, so I was just about to turn 40 years old. So to me, it's very sad that he died so young. I mean, Sam, your younger brother, was only barely 2. He just turned 2, he was coming up 3, maybe 2 3/4. So yeah, it's very sad to lose him that early an age. However, I wouldn't want him to have grown as old as Grandma is now, because I think he's a very proud man. He wouldn't have appreciated being ill and degenerating. So, you know, he went out in his prime almost. As I said, he was only had in poor health for 2 or 3 years, and even then, it was a big shock when he actually died when he was 77, because it was an undiagnosed, serious problem we hadn't really realised he had it. So.
You say that Grandad wouldn't really suit growing old, and he didn't really like hospitals and stuff like that. What sort of stuff did he like?
What does he like? What did Grandad like? As I said, he liked his garden, he liked aeroplanes, anything military. He loved the military, loved Grandma, he loved his boys growing up, he loved his family, loved the northeast of England, loved Sunderland and the area that he grew up in. He was a keen driver, so he loved driving around. He used to drive, obviously one of his jobs for about 10 to 15 years was just drive around Northumberland and up as far as Edinburgh and across to Carlisle and all of the border areas of, basically from Darlington in sort of North Yorkshire all the way up to Scotland. That area of England was, he would drive all over the place. And he loved smoking, to be honest. That's the other thing he did. He did smoke quite a lot until he was about 70, early 70s he gave up, but he would, he did actually enjoy cigarettes.
Did you do anything mentally to prepare for him, like passing away?
Just spent time with them. So I used to make a habit of, despite the fact they would come down here, in fact, this attic room that we're doing this recording in was only built in 2005, and they only stayed in it once or twice. But Grandma and Grandad used to come and stay here, so your Grandad has stayed in this room. But I always used to make a point of going up to see them, and I used to, even though you guys were young, we used to travel up with you. One of you, I took Emma up once, I took you up once. So we used to fly up for the weekend, basically. I remember flying up with you in the plane, and you thought it was all exciting and cool, just the two of us. So I used to have a dad's weekend away with one of you and take you up to the northeast on the plane, fly up, spend 2 nights with Grandma and Grandad in their house, and then fly home again on Sunday night.
How did you cope after he passed away?
Well, it was a big shock. It was a really big shock. Didn't really cope very well. Cried a lot. Drove up through the night when he actually died. I clearly remember, it's a bit weird to describe it, but every minute of every day for about 10 days, you thought of nothing but him. So I remember waking up, you go to sleep and manage to maybe sleep for 4 or 5 hours, wake up, and the first thing you think of is, oh, my dad's died. And then you'd think about that all day and nothing else, whether it be funeral or how did he die, or playing out events again in your mind. So I went back up to help Grandma with something in terms of her wills. I flew back up. So we'd been up, we'd seen him, and we came down again. And I always remember looking out of the window, and I thought about something else. I can't remember what it was. I think it was like there was a cloud in the sky, or I was looking down thinking, no, I can see Birmingham, or I don't know, something from the plane. And I remember very consciously thinking to myself, wow, that's the first time I've thought of anything else in 10 days, like 10 full days. I've thought of absolutely nothing else but the fact that he's died. And I always remember, I try and tell somebody, I think I told Phil has just reminded me that I told him this fact. He said, time will eventually heal. Time is the best healer. And I remember thinking about that when he died, that it'd taken me 10 days to think of any single thing other than him. And then obviously the gap between that and the next time I thought about something else was a little bit shorter, like 7 days. And then the gap to the next time I thought about other stuff in any material way, enjoy yourself watching a television program, or I'm literally saying you thought of nothing else. Imagine thinking about one subject for 10 straight days with nothing in between. And then gradually those intervals become lesser and lesser. But even, it affects different people in different ways. Even now, my brother, in fact, 2 or 3 years ago, he rang my mum up and reminded her that it was the day that Dad had died, the 1st of August. And Mum had forgotten, and he rang me up and I'd forgotten. I'd forgotten that was the day, because my brother still consciously sort of stops at almost, at 1st of August every year and religiously remembers it. I've now, although it took me a few years, after about 10 or 15 years, eventually you think of him not in that negative way. You remember him, but you think of him in a positive way. You think about positive things you do, and those thoughts occur to you at different times, right? When something reminds you of him, like an aeroplane in the sky, or you just presented me with an old Airfix model that I'm sure I probably made with him many years ago.
Dad, I love you so much. It's not like I don't say it. I just wanted to make this video to make you realise how much you mean to me. Take care, everyone. Look out for some new content soon. It's coming. Peace.